I know you are hurt and frustrated, and I wish I had something better to say than I love you. I have tried very hard to fit in, but everything just fell apart, and this time there were just too many pieces for me to pick up again. So I've taken Tim somewhere safe. He will be well cared for, and he says that he loves you.
And Amy were going to be gone. I mean, none at all.
Amy's my middle child. Amy had not been a depressed child or a depressed teenager. I think her depression actually was an engineer, and she just really liked him, and he was really delightful.
We dated long distance for a year or so. Amy revealed a few things about her history with her depression. I figured that eventually Amy would get off the medication and deal with her issues, and we could move on with our lives together. Early spring 2003, I get a phone call from the hospital saying that Amy's in hospital in Cedar Rapids. Amy had gone to Backbone State Park. She had taken some pills, I guess, and sitting on the edge of a cliff and supposedly passed out and fell off the cliff.
I knew that was a suicide attempt. She didn't have to tell me. I just knew. Because I had told her a couple of times I'd tried to, and, you know. In our eyes, it was nothing to be ashamed of. It was just our life.
In 2004, Amy became pregnant with our son, Timothy. We had talked about getting married later in 2004, but the news of her being pregnant accelerated things a little bit.
He wanted her to go through with the pregnancy, and she became much happier about it as time went by.
October 18th, 2004, about 3:30 in the afternoon is when he was born. It was a good day.
Amy didn't want him to be called Timmy. She wanted Timothy or Tim. I said, why did you put that extra M in there, for heaven's sake? She said, well, I just wanted it a little different from Timothy. She just adored that little boy, and he just adored her.
He's an energetic little boy. Loves his Matchbox cars and his cats. He was in swimming lessons. He liked to play in the water.
I thought, well, she's doing good, and she's going to be okay. But then the marriage started to have problems.
Marriage is, to me, it's like a permanent commitment. You get married for better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness and in health. We always talked about making it work and doing whatever happened.
So often in a disintegrating relationship or a divorce, there's only one consistent victim, and that victim is the child. Why those two people as adults can't say, you know what, let's take the high road. Whatever our problems are, our main job is the most important, most treasured possession of our marriage is that child. Everybody loved that little boy, but in the end, he has always been and still is collateral damage.
But that's not going to happen with me. There will be no divorce. I will not let her divorce me. I think that she just felt that there was no way out.
Amy said she'd do with Timothy what she wanted because Timothy belonged to her.
This was a really stupid thing to do, Amy. Jim was angry with her at that time, and he kind of said, well, she's brought up divorce, but she's been depressed. She could be committed. I could have her son taken away from her.
She was deathly afraid of that. She goes, you know, he's keeping me here, hanging this over my head all the time. I said, Amy, no judge is going to take your son away from you. And she goes, well, but he keeps telling me that.
Yes, I did say that, yes, you're not going to get custody of our son because you're not stable enough to take care of him.
On May the 11th at 8:30 a.m., she arrived at Greenman Elementary School.
She told them that they had a family emergency and that she'd be gone for a couple days. I tried her cell phone 15, 20 times. Didn't know where she was or what had gone on. Then I got to the point of, I don't care where you're at or what you're doing. Just call and say you're fine.
I know that this woman was so disturbed and in such serious need of some type of help. Somebody that loved her needed to intercede, and it didn't happen.
On Friday, she made a series of phone calls.
Friday afternoon, I get a phone call from my brother saying that Amy had contacted him, then that Amy said that she'd do with Timothy what she wanted because Timothy belonged to her.
I was so happy to hear from her. I said, oh, thank God you're all right. I'm kind of mad at you because this was a really stupid thing to do, Amy. You know, if you're thinking of divorcing Jim or leaving him, you shouldn't have done this. And I said, you know, please just come home. Okay, Mom.
Saturday morning is when they found her.
I was off duty, but I was contacted by a colleague who had advised that Rockford PD had discovered Amy Pitson in one of their local hotels. Timothy was nowhere to be found.
So evidently she went to this anonymous hotel room and killed herself. The bitch. Just...
She had laid out pictures of Timothy, Timothy's ID card, all nice and neat.
It's apparent from the note that she left behind that she did not want Timothy to be with Jim. But what her motivation was behind that, we have not been able to determine, because there's no evidence that Jim was abusive in any way, shape, or form to his child. The note stated that Tim is somewhere safe with people who love him and will take care of him. We immediately began treating it as if it were a child abduction. When you get to the last known location of where Timothy and Amy had been, I mean, it's predominantly farmland. Any one of those locations could, in theory, be a spot where she could have done a handoff of her child to someone. Since we had found Amy deceased, locating Timothy became priority number one. At that point, we started to access some of her financial records. We had located some receipts on the scene and were able to kind of start backtracking some of the locations that they had been. After Amy checks Timothy out of his elementary school, their next stop was a local zoo here in the area. And then Amy and Timothy then traveled up to a water park in Gurnee, Illinois.
We had been to Key Lime Cove the year before, and Tim just loved it. Probably just trying to give him something wonderful to remember.
The next morning, they check out. They drive up into Wisconsin. There were a couple of various stops. They ultimately ended up at another water park resort in the Wisconsin Dells.
There were places Timothy always had fun and always wanted to go.
You know, the morbidity of what was going through her mind, I can't wrap my head around it. I'm gonna do all these fun things with my son, and then I'm gonna kill myself.
The last surveillance video that included Tim would have been when she was checking out of the Kalahari Resort in the Wisconsin Dells. At around 7:30 that same day, we see Amy stopping to a grocery store in Winnebago, Illinois. This is the first time that we see Amy is by herself.
You see her walking in, and a couple minutes later, you see her walking out with her bag of food in her hand and no Timothy.
In this case, there are two viable theories. One, that Amy brought harm to her son, but I have yet to meet one person who believes that she would ever harm her child. The other option is that she turned him over to someone who, as she wrote in her note, would love and care for him. When you get to the last known location of where Timothy and Amy had been when her phone was powered on, there are no buildings. There's no city. There's nothing but farmland. Any one of those locations could, in theory, be a spot where she could have done a handoff of her child to someone.
I think whoever took him did so out of goodness and wanting him to be okay, even though it's illegal.
Let's pray that somebody's going to see this and see both sides of that story and do the right thing. We've got to do the right thing and get him back to the people who really love him.
He could be being homeschooled. He could be in the middle of nowhere. He could be with some radical church group. I have no idea where he's at.
He's very bright. If he was anywhere where he could have possibly called, he would have called.
Who knows what she had told them to get them to take Timothy? That I could have been abusive or I was beating Timothy, which never happened and never would have happened.
One would think that if someone, let's say, were told a story to take Timothy, that they would then ultimately see that he, in fact, does have a family out there who is, still misses him and loves him and wants him to return. For them not to then reach out and try and reunite them, I mean, it's hard to figure out.
I mean, it's one thing to kill yourself, but it's another thing to do this and involve Timothy. My only son, I really miss the little guy. I have one image. It's the day I dropped him off at school, and he's off running off to class, and that's pretty much the last image I have in my mind of him.
Timothy Pitson is an outgoing, inquisitive child. He loves playing in and around water. He may be tall and mature-looking for his age. If you've seen Timothy Pitson or have any information as to his whereabouts, please make that call, 1-866-THE-HUNT, or go online at cnn.com/thehunt. You can remain anonymous, and we'll pass your tip on to the proper authorities. If requested, we will not reveal your name.
I had a phone call about 3:25 in the morning. When I got up there, it just looked so doomed. There was other people inside the house.
Mama was good people. She was even good to this man.
Some people will embellish about their background. This guy, his whole life is a lie.
Over 100 of my family here in Petersburg. We've been here for generation to generation.
Yeah, I got a big family. We love each other.
We are a church-going family. We were a close family anyway, but it made us closer.
I was walking to a store, and I met him, and we just started talking. He was like a gentleman, you know. If we went anywhere, he opened the door. He introduced himself to me as real deal. But I knew he was Alexander DeVille Hill.
mother used to talk about how nice and sweet and kind he was with my sister Vivian.
We thought he was the ideal man for my sister.
I was in love with him. Actually, I used to talk about marrying him.
I saw a change in her. My mother saw a change in her. We didn't know a lot of things about him. He just appeared to be a nice guy.
It was just in my mind, just something about him. It was too good. He was too good.
It's a whole lot I found out about him that would totally last.
That's when she found out about the wife.
Wife? When was you gonna tell me you was married? He was like, oh, I thought I told you. I was like, I think I would have remembered if you told me you was married. He talked a lot about Trinidad, but he never said places. You know what I'm saying? He never said where in Trinidad.
He says he's from Trinidad. He's never been to Trinidad. He's born and raised in Virginia. He's basically a loser that spent his whole life here that's trying to impress people.
Alexander Hill Jr. has a history of violence. He's been arrested in several jurisdictions here in Virginia. He's assaulted family members, pulled out a firearm on his mother.
He certainly had those predator skills. He had a lot to hide. He had a rap sheet a mile long, but he knew this family's tight, they're loving, somewhat naive, very, very trusting, and I can get inside this family. It's like hunters picking out their prey.
It started out by the food. He wanted me to cook every day. My job was to cook, clean. So, you know, we'll go at it. Evidently, you think it is my job to cater to you. You sit up there trying to talk mess to me about why ain't this way, why ain't that way. You got too much for me. So, you know, me and my mama had a talk, and I was telling her I was gonna leave him. He told me, well, if you feel like way you can leave, I say, oh, trust and believe. I'm heading out the door as soon as I can change my clothes. At that point, he started snatching clothes out the closet. When I went back to pick the clothes up and put them in it, he attacked me from behind.
And somehow she ended up on the floor, and he tried to pull her eyeball out.
He was like, I'm gonna kill your ass. I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, not the damn day. The day ain't the day I'm gonna die.
And I told her, I said, you need to go down to Petersburg Police Department and take a warrant out on him for assault.
So I go to the hospital to, you know, get my eye checked. As soon as they give me the discharge paper, the police was there to put handcuffs on me. I was like, oh, wow, he had me arrested.
He had the assault charge against Vivian. So Vivian had to show up for court. And the judge asked him 3 times to state his name, and he kept on saying that it may be incriminating to what he may say, may be held against him, what he may say.
The judge was like, you can't do that. You can't plead the 5th on your name. So he kept saying he pleaded 5th, and he was like, if you say it again, I'm gonna find you in contempt.
The judge decided that he was gonna just go ahead and dismiss the case, and that's what happened.
That's when all the phone calls started.
He just changed. The real came out.
He'll call me every day, 10 times a day. Where sometimes I wouldn't even answer my phone to a point where I got, will you please leave me alone? Stop calling my phone. Sometimes he wouldn't say nothing, but he'll talk like this. I'm gonna kill you, bitch.
One of the policemen told us that, that wherever we see him at, to write it down in a book for they can get him on a stalking charge.
My sister Vicky said that you're sleeping on Rhea because he's going to try to do something to us. I guess all of us underestimated the situation.
Well, all that we would have listened to, Vicky.
Yeah, it was Easter weekend.
My mom had went to church that Friday.
She was a strong Christian woman, so she always said, well, she's not worried about nothing because God is going to take care of her.
My mama was in the bed because she had came from church. She was like, I'm tired, I'm going on the bed.
It was early morning hours of April 19th of 2014.
We received a 911 call. There was a young lady saying that someone broke in the house and that he was attacking her mom. And then the line disconnects.
I had a phone call about 3:25 in the morning saying that my mom's house was on fire.
So when I got up there, I could see my mother's house. No, I knew something was wrong because my family would have been out there. They would have been out there.
My niece called me. She was like, my mama's house on fire. I was like, the house on fire? My mama not outside? She was like, no, grandma not out here. Vicky not out here. I was like, oh my God. Right then and there, I fell to my knees because I knew he did what he said he was gonna do.
Vivian had just left the house at 10 o'clock that night. So it's quite possible that she would have been a victim as well if she would have been home.
Was he watching me? Did he make sure I wasn't in there? He wanted me to hurt this bad to kill my family?
He wanted to hurt this woman so bad that she would never forget him. This man is a danger to society. He's taken revenge to a different level.
And just for him, just in one night, destroy family lives that you never get back, number memories.
The part that really gets me about him, he called my mother Mom. And all my mother ever did was treat him like a son of hers. And he did this to her.
More information was coming to light that Mr. Hill would be the person of interest in this homicide. We were checking everywhere for him.
When we were contacted by Petersburg that there was a fire and that 3 women and a child were found deceased inside, and that a person of interest was Alexander Hill, Jr., we hit the ground running. On that Saturday, many of us working over 15 hours the day before Easter.
We went to his house, executed a search warrant to try to see if he was there, looked for every relative that we could find. On the 20th, about midnight, we find out that a local cab company giving him a ride.
Hill apparently showed up at the cab company in Petersburg asking for a ride, initially to Southern Virginia in Emporia, and then along the route changed up and said, I need to get to North Carolina.
They dropped him off at the Waffle House in Roanoke Rapids.
I sent fugitive task force members from Richmond down to Roanoke Rapids, obtained video footage of Hill walking into the Waffle House, and then asks for someone to call a cab for him.
He gets the ride further south into North Carolina, and we were able to see him on surveillance at the Amtrak station.
The Amtrak trains were running, but because it was Easter Sunday, the buses were not.
He asked for fare prices, but didn't purchase a ticket.
He never gets on a train. He ends up leaving the station, never to be seen again. And that's the last location we have for him 24 hours after the murders.
When you look at the videos, you know one thing. He's dangerous, he's evil, somewhat smart, the ultimate con man, but he doesn't have any resources. He's a lone psychopath. And this guy could go from city to city and get a meal, get a shower, find some place to live, find transient work, and stay out there for years.
Eternal Father, we thank you again for your many blessings. We thank you for family and fellowship. We thank you, God, for your loving kindness.
How could I bring this man into my home? Meet my family, take him around my family.
Vivian carrying a lot of weight on her now because she felt like it was her fault, which it wasn't her fault.
I think she feel guilt because she brought this man around the family, but it could have been anyone. And we just tell her we love her, and it's not her fault. It's not her fault.
We're gonna stand and be together with this. He will not bring us down.
While we were shooting and producing this story, Alexander Hill was a really bad guy on the run. But just days after the one-year anniversary of this horrible crime, media attention led to a very stunning development.
Breaking right now at 5, investigators have arrested a man suspected in the killing of a Petersburg family.
U.S. Marshals captured Hill this morning after he was spotted at a soup kitchen in Buffalo.
He was arrested this morning at a local homeless shelter where he'd been staying. And people I spoke with who worked there said they had no idea they had a murder suspect living under their roof. Police say Hill was going by the name Trent Dales here in Buffalo.
Fingerprinting took hours because Hill refused to roll prints. He fought with officers, clenched his fists, and threatened them.
How Alexander Hill wound up in Buffalo, we may never find out. Amazingly, this wasn't the first time that Hill got press coverage in this town. About 6 weeks before he was arrested, Alexander Hill, calling himself Trent Dales, agreed to do an interview in the homeless shelter he was staying in.
Trent Dales, a carpenter by trade, was laid off from his job and lost his home.
The minister has given me an opportunity to do some work, kept me out of the elements, and so far it looks like it's going up.
Where else was this guy hiding? Right. He was on the run for a year. They just happened to find him in Buffalo.
Alexander Hill has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and child pornography. The prosecutor may still file additional charges, including arson. He may face the death penalty. Hill has refused to speak with his attorney, attend hearings, or participate in the court process in any way. He has not yet pled to these charges.
Today, some of the family members were in court as Alexander Hill displayed some very bizarre behavior.
First, this creep denied his identity in Buffalo. Then he refused to sit up straight in the courtroom. He went on a hunger strike. He's doing anything he can to slow down the wheels of justice.